You talked about on Fox the supposed to throws that you try to make. What goes into like this, like in your mind, like when you're deciding to take a deep shot downfield or want to check it down to Noah Bucky?
Well, the deep shots are all about, are they open or are they covered? And we do a good job of scheming up the open ones. And so usually we got some good leverages and good throws out there. And if they cover them, if the defense drops back, we just usually have a lot of check down opportunities. And those check downs have been a lot of our explosives this year.
Is it like precautionary to do it like maybe later in the game, or is it you want to do it earlier?
Take whatever they give you. So if they want to give the check downs a little bit at the beginning, just go ahead and take them. But usually it happens opposite. Usually they'll give you a few deep and then they'll start backing up, and then you'll have the check downs later.
How much more, even in the course of your career, just where running backs get more and more involved in the passing game, not just as check downs, but that they're live options all the time. And
yeah,
that's maybe not something that existed 5, 6.
Coach Dillingham loves using the backside of the backfield. And we have some guys that can, they can run the ball and get out the backfield. So we'll go with some 2 running back sets, have a lot more running backs on the field. And when that kind of stuff happens, usually you get in some run sets and they come down and defend the run, and then you got some explosive shots behind them. And then with that leads to check downs and some of those shorter passes to running backs.
You said after the Cal game about harping on some of those miscues, particularly in the red zone. So let's harp on them.
Yeah.
And reevaluating them, looking over on film. All right, the incompletion. All right, there's an interception and a stop on a running back play. Your assessment of those 3 and what you could have done differently, better.
Yeah, just all 3 are unique plays. Next time we'll just go out there and execute them. We've been doing well on 4th downs and in the red zone. And so we don't think there's really it's not necessarily to just go crazy about the red zone, but it's more along the focus and the details once you get there.
What do you make of this team's ability to not get complacent during a 7-game win streak and not overlook an opponent?
Well, I think it just goes into how we practice, and Coach Lanning does a really good job of, he gets us out there, we practice hard, and we practice against each other, and we understand the importance of just continuing to put in the work during the week so we can perform on Saturdays, and that's what we've done. That's what's got us to this point. So we're just, as a team, we're just going to continue to do that.
How much did the disappointment of not scoring as often or the yards that you could have had against Cal carry over to this week and the focus of preparation for this week?
Yeah, I think it's funny. 42 points and 580 yards is considered disappointing. But we don't want to take that for granted. We know there's still a lot to improve on, but we were still really excited on the things we did well and those things. But just at the end of the day, if we want to just continue to play complete football, we got to execute those few mistakes that we made, and then get those corrected, and then you never know what will happen after that.
With Chase out and Stephen no longer around, who are the receivers who are maybe stepping up this week in practice?
Well, the same ones. I think we've done a good job of rotating guys this year. Coach Adams, he does a really good job of getting those guys ready to roll. We'll have guys out there, same guys like Troy and Chris, who are going to continue to play well, tight ends, running backs. We use a lot by committee, so those guys, we throw the kitchen table at defenses, so there's a lot they got to prepare for, a lot of different sets. A lot of individual keys that they can look for, but at the same time they're always changing, so it's hard for defense to match up. But we'll have similar receivers out there that have been kind of playing well for us.
You feel like after a drive or two you get more comfortable with the defense after you get to see a little bit more of their minor discrepancies?
Yeah, Cal came out in really a completely different defense that they showed. It was in their scheme, but they hadn't been running a lot of it. We feel like here on out we're going to get some of that, some teams that are doing different things on us, because it's hard for a defense just to kind of line up and do base stuff against us because we're so multiple. So we know we're going to have to prepare for those different things and get in the game and then have to adjust. But yeah, after 2 drives, usually it is easy to settle in and know what they're doing.
What have you seen so far from this Colorado defense on film?
Well, they're just they're everywhere. They run a lot of different things. They'll bring blitzes, they'll play coverage, they'll play man, so a lot of different things, and I think that's what's unique about them.
What's the key to avoiding sort of a sluggish start like you guys had against Cal?
I think it is important to just score when we get in the red zone.
You began to build your relationship with Kenny going back to your time at Auburn, and even now. how have you gone about, like, we're always like hearing about like his story and in terms of like how he got into coaching and his senior year of high school and the injury and all that.
Well, yeah, his experience has been really unique. He literally started from the bottom and got all the way up to where he's at now, and it's all just literal, just kind of want to and hard work. I think he's the epitome of a guy that's got in there and just worked his way up to the top, and that's why I think he's so much fun to just be around, because he understands what it's like. He understands the joy in football, and it's not just kind of monotonous out there with him. He's always brings energy. He always has a very lively spirit, and so I think that that carries over into his coaching. He's just a very passionate guy, and it's just been fun to really be around him for the second year.
Did you talk to any of his former quarterbacks, either then or now or any time between?
No, I haven't really talked to any of his former guys, even though he's been around some good ones. He's had a lot of success with the quarterbacks he's been around, but I have not been in touch with those guys.
Going back to the Hudson drop on third down against Cal, there wasn't a lot of emotion showed from you. It was on third down, next play mentality. Can you talk about like maybe maturation you may have had, like early in your year you may have been more emotional after a drop like that?
Well, I've seen Chris run that play and catch that ball so many times to where I know that is like very rare, and it just happens. Sometimes you get bad step, you get your hand placement wrong, and so as a receiver, I completely understand, and it's hard to really get mad at a guy like that when he's always at practice, always doing the right things, always trying to get better and working hard and competing and running around everywhere. So I don't even think really in the first part of my career you could get mad at a drop pass. I don't believe I've ever really done that. But it's just like they aren't going to get mad at me when I miss them when they're wide open. So it's just kind of understanding each other. And I see the work that he puts in every week. People from the outside may see, oh, he drops, that's a terrible play, all this kind of stuff. But I've seen Chris make that over and over, and I throw it to him 10 out of 10 times.
Have you seen Patrick kind of embrace the hybrid role that he plays of tight end, fullback, and just what makes him so good at that?
Well, that whole room, they do a good job of they find their role and they do their role at a high efficiency rate. And I know those guys, they care about one another, they love each other. One of the tightest rooms in our complex, and so when you look at what Pat's done just in the fullback, when you bring the power I back, tight end, when he's got out and caught a touchdown last week, those guys are so multiple. They can do so many different things. So it kind of just spreads out their plates and doesn't allow them to have to think too much about different things, because that tight end probably is one of the harder positions in our offense, because they're using the pass game, in the run game. They're everywhere. They've got so many different sets. So those guys do a really good job of being multiple.
How uncommon is it for 4 tight ends to play the amount of snaps that they're all playing?
Boy, it's uncommon, I think, because you never really have teams that have 4 tight ends like we do. You may have 1 or 2, but we have 4 tight ends that can play, really honestly, probably anywhere in the country, and so it just speaks to their talent. And so because of that, we just want to get them on the field, and the more tight ends you can put out there, it puts just the defense in a hard situation, because do you get big and stop the run, or we can also spread it out and throw it, so then you're stuck. So it's hard for a defense when you use tight ends like that.
You told CBS last week that you had gotten to be miserable at times last season. And I know obviously Auburn still matters a lot to you and your family. They made their change this week. What's your reaction to them making a change?
Yeah, well, I was miserable in high school when I lost games. I was speaking to losing being the miserable part. I don't like to lose, and there's a lot of teams out there right now that don't enjoy losing, and so winning is just it kind of gets you out of that mindset. And here it's just we've had a really good season. We've put together some solid weeks back to back, and I'm just happy to be here. I think that this is where I'm supposed to be, and the past is the past. There's nothing that I can do, nor nothing I can say that's really going to change anything. But I'm not worried about really any other team right now than Oregon.